All right, so are you ready to dive into the Halloween franchise?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So we're going to be talking about all the Halloween films today, and specifically, we're going to be looking at this list that we found from the top10s.com called Top 10 Best Halloween Franchise Movies.
Sounds spooky.
Oh, yeah. And, the thing is with Halloween, like, everybody has an opinion about which movie is best.
Right.
You got your purists that love the original.
Yeah.
You got folks who swear by, like, Halloween 4 or Halloween 5. And some people even like Halloween the 3rd, the one that doesn't even have Michael Myers in it.
Right. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
There is. So we're going to go through this list, and we're going to try and figure out why people love the movies that they love.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so starting off at the very top of the list, we have the only Halloween from 1978.
OG?
The OG classic. I mean, this is the one that started it all, right?
It's a masterpiece.
It's a total masterpiece.
Yeah.
I mean, it introduced us to Michael Myers. It gave us all of those classic slasher tropes.
The Mask.
The Mask, the babysitter, the small town,
Mm-hmm.
the suspense, the violence. Like, it really is the blueprint.
And the atmosphere, too. You can't forget
Okay.
the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah. What do you think it is about that film that makes it so creepy even all these years later?
Well, for me, it's the simplicity.
Uh,
It's not overly reliant on gore or jump scares. It's that slow, creeping dread.
Yeah, like something's always lurking around the corner.
Exactly. Like you never know when Michael's going to pop up.
Right. And I was reading through some of the comments on the top 10s list, and a lot of people are mentioning the performances.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Specifically Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis.
Oh, he's fantastic. He really brings that character to life.
He does. And of course, Jamie Lee Curtis in her breakout role as Laurie Strode,
Oh, the original Final Girl.
the Scream Queen.
Yes.
All right, so moving on to number 2. We have Halloween 2nd from 1981, which picks up right where the first one left off.
Okay, so this is the one that really leans into the slasher stuff, right?
It does. It's got more gore, more action. And it continues that cat and mouse game between Laurie and Michael.
Mhm.
And some fans even say that it's better than the original.
Really?
I know. It's
Yeah.
a hot take. But they love the intensity and the brutality of it.
I can see that. It definitely has a different energy than the first one.
Right. It's less about the suspense and more about the pure horror.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting because a lot of fans also say that Halloween the 2nd lacks the atmosphere and the dread of the original.
I mean, it makes sense. The first one is so iconic and so unique
Yeah,
that it's hard to replicate that feeling.
exactly. So with Halloween 2nd, you're either all in on the ride or you prefer the slower burn of the original.
Yeah, I can see both sides.
But no matter what you think of it, it definitely cemented Michael Myers as a horror legend.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump ahead a couple of decades to number 3 on the list. Halloween age 20 years later. This one came out in 1998, and it marked the return of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember this one. This is a big deal.
It was a big deal. People were so excited to see her back.
Well, yeah, after all those sequels that kind of went off the rails, it was like a breath of fresh air.
Right, and it also seemed to deliver on what fans were hoping for.
Yeah.
It had a tighter story, it focused more on character development, and of course, Jamie Lee Curtis gave an amazing performance as a Laurie Strode, who was still haunted by the past, but now she's ready to fight back.
That's awesome. It's like she's finally taking control of her story.
Right. And it's interesting because this film was trying to do a couple of things at once. It was trying to appeal to the old school fans who loved the original Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also trying to bring in a new generation of horror fans.
And how did that work out?
Well, it seems like it worked pretty well. I mean, fans were really happy to see Laurie back. They felt like this film gave her some closure, and it also had some really great suspenseful moments.
That's cool.
So what did you think of H20 as kind of a revival of the franchise?
I think it was a smart move. Bringing back Jamie Lee Curtis
Yeah.
and really digging into the trauma that Laurie Strode went through.
Yeah,
It added a layer of depth that some of the other sequels were missing.
I agree. And it paved the way for some of the more recent Halloween films that have continued to explore Laurie's story.
Yeah, it definitely set a new standard for the franchise.
All right, so let's move on to number 4, which is a bit of a surprise. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This one came out in 1988, and it introduces a new character, Jamie Lloyd, who is Laurie Strode's daughter.
Oh, wow. So it's like a new generation of victims.
Exactly, and Michael is now stalking his own niece.
That's creepy.
It's super creepy. And fans really seem to love this new dynamic. They love the family drama, and they love the idea that Michael is obsessed with his bloodline. There's also a lot of praise for the atmosphere of this film and for the performance of the young actress who played Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a sense of, what could have been. You know, like Jamie's story was cut short and people felt like there was so much more to explore there.
I can see that. It's like they opened up a whole new chapter in the Halloween universe, but then they didn't quite follow through on it.
Right. And that brings us to number 5 on the list. Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007.
Okay. This is the remake, right?
This is the remake, and it is a divisive one.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Some fans absolutely love it. They love how gritty and dark and violent it is,
Mhm.
and they appreciate that Zombie tried to give Michael Myers a backstory.
Right, like he was trying to understand the psychology of the killer.
Exactly.
Right.
But then you have other fans who feel like the remake strays too far from the spirit of the original.
I see. So it's like the age-old question, is it scarier to know why the monster does what it does, or is it scarier when it's just pure evil?
Right. And with Zombies Halloween, you get both sides of that argument.
Yeah. It's definitely a film that gets people talking.
And then on top of that, you have the debate between the theatrical cut and the director's cut.
Oh, right.
Some fans think the unrated version is too much,
Too
too violent, too over the top. But other fans think it's the truest expression of Zombie's vision.
So you're saying there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to unpack, and we're only halfway through the list.
Oh, boy. All right, bring on the rest.
Buckle up. We're going deep.
Okay, I'm ready. It's like every Halloween movie just adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it's wild. So, okay, speaking of fan debates, let's talk about Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers.
All right, number 6 on the list.
This one, it often gets labeled as like the weakest link, you know?
The Black Sheep.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it still has its fans.
Really?
Yeah. Some people actually like how it tries to dig deeper into the whole Jamie and Michael connection.
Okay, so like the whole Uncle Noose thing?
Yeah, like is it a bond? Is it just pure terror? Like what is going on there?
It's definitely a weird dynamic.
Super weird. And I think that's what draws people in, you know?
It's like a morbid curiosity.
Totally. Like you want to understand how this little girl is dealing with this like ultimate evil.
It's kind of like a twisted fairy tale almost.
Yeah, right. And some fans actually find that aspect of the film really compelling, even if the rest of it isn't quite up to par.
I get it. It's like you can see the potential there, but the execution is a little off.
Yeah, people complain about the pacing, the plot.
The slasher tropes.
Yeah, it just feels a little stale compared to the earlier films.
Okay, but what about the stuff that people did? Like, I mean, you said it has its fans, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, some people like how it continues Laurie's story even though she's not in it.
Oh, interesting.
And they like how it explores like the psychological impact of Michael Myers, you know?
Like how trauma can really mess you up.
Yeah, and how it just like lingers and affects people even years later.
Okay, so it's not all bad.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to a film that really shook things up. Halloween the 3rd, Season of the Witch.
This is the one that doesn't even have Michael Myers, right?
Oh, no Michael Myers whatsoever.
So what is it about?
Well, it's a completely standalone story about this evil company called Silver Shamrock that's making these Halloween masks.
Halloween masks.
And these masks are like cursed or something.
What?
I know it's weird, but it's actually a really interesting film.
But I mean, people must have been pissed when it came out. Like, where's Michael?
Oh, they were not happy. They wanted more Michael Myers, not this weird sci-fi horror thing.
So how did it become a cult classic then?
Well, I think over time people started to appreciate how different it was, you know? Like it wasn't afraid to take risks and it had this really creepy atmosphere.
So it's like it found its audience eventually.
Exactly. And some people even say it's their favorite Halloween film.
Really? Wow. See, that's what I love about this franchise. There's something for everyone.
Totally. All right, so let's get back to Michael Myers with Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers.
Okay, this one is at number 8, right?
Yes, and it's another one that gets a lot of hate.
What's wrong with it?
Well, people complain about the plot, the pacing.
Is he too convoluted?
Yeah, it can be a little hard to follow, but it does try to do something interesting with the mythology of Michael Myers.
Oh, really? How's
Well, it introduces this whole Curse of Thorn thing.
Curse of Thorn?
Yeah, it's like this ancient Celtic curse that explains why Michael is so evil and unstoppable.
Okay, that's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, some fans really like that aspect of it. And then there's also the whole debate about the different cuts of the film.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this.
So there's the theatrical release, which is the one that most people saw in theaters. And then there's the producer's cut, which is like a completely different film.
What? How is that possible?
Well, the producer's cut has a lot of extra footage, and it's edited in a way that makes the story much more coherent.
So it's like a secret, better version of the film.
Exactly. And a lot of fans actually prefer the producer's cut to the theatrical release.
That's wild.
It is. Okay, so now let's jump ahead to the 2018 Halloween.
Oh, yeah. This is the one that's a direct sequel to the original, right?
Exactly. It ignores all the other sequels and just picks up 40 years later.
So it's like a reboot, but with Jamie Lee Curtis back as Laurie Strode.
Exactly. And it was a huge hit.
Yeah, I remember everyone was talking about it.
People loved how suspenseful it was and how brutal the kills were.
And Jamie Lee Curtis was amazing in it.
Oh, she was phenomenal. She plays Laurie as this hardened survivor who's been preparing for Michael's return for decades.
That's so cool. It's like she's finally ready to face her demons.
Right. And I think what really resonated with people was how the film explored the idea of trauma.
Yeah, like how it can have these long-lasting effects on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Laurie's paranoia, her obsession with Michael, it all stems from the trauma she experienced 40 years ago.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, it adds a whole other layer to the story.
Okay, so what about Rob Zombie's Halloween the Second? Where does that one fall on the list?
Well, it's at number 9.
Oh, so not as popular as this first one.
Nope. This one is even more divisive.
How so?
Well, it's even darker and more violent than the remake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it really dives into the psychological connection between Laurie and Michael.
Okay, so it's not just about the scares. It's about the characters and their messed up relationship.
Right. And some fans love that. They love how intense and disturbing it is.
It's like a nightmare you can't wake up from.
Exactly. But then you have other fans who think it's just too much.
Too graphic.
Too graphic, too bleak, too far removed from the spirit of the original Halloween.
So definitely not for everyone.
It's not. It's a challenging film, but it's definitely bold and uncompromising.
That's like Rob Zombie.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that leaves us with the bottom 2 films on the list. Okay, so we're down to the bottom 2, and these are the ones that really get people riled up. Halloween, Resurrection, and Halloween Ends.
Yeah, the black sheep of the family.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because they both trying to do something different with the franchise.
Yeah, they're not your typical slasher flicks.
Not at all. Resurrection, for example, is super meta.
Meta, how so?
Well, it's like self-aware almost. Like it knows it's a horror movie.
Okay.
And it even has reality TV elements in it.
Reality TV? Well,
Yeah, like there's this group of teenagers who are doing a live webcast from Michael Myers' childhood home.
oh, wow. That's a bold choice.
Yeah, it is. And some fans actually liked that. You know, they thought it was clever and funny.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have other fans who hated it.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a bit of a gimmick.
It is. It's like they were trying too hard to be edgy.
And did it work?
I don't know. I think it depends on your sense of humor.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you have Halloween Ends, which tries to wrap up the whole Laurie and Michael saga.
Oh, boy.
And it does it in a way that really divided the fandom.
I bet. So what did they do?
Well, they introduce this new character, Corey Cunningham,
Okay.
and he kind of becomes like a protege for Michael.
A protege.
Yeah, it's weird. But some fans actually liked that aspect of it. They thought it was interesting to see how evil could be passed on.
Like a legacy of evil.
Right. But then you have other fans who thought it was a huge mistake.
Like, why focus on a new character when you have Laurie and Michael?
Right. They felt like Corey's story took away from the main conflict.
I can see that. It's a risky move, for sure.
It is. But, you know, it's kind of amazing that even after all these years, people still care so much about Halloween.
It's a testament to the power of the franchise.
It is. And I think this whole deep dive has really shown us that there's no one right way to enjoy Halloween.
Yeah, everyone has their own favorites and their own reasons for loving them.
Exactly. So as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
What is it about Halloween that keeps you coming back for more? Is it the scares, the characters, the atmosphere? What is it?
That's a good question. I think, for me, it's the simplicity of it. You know,
Yeah.
It's just pure evil versus good.
Yeah, and there's something really primal about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And no matter how many times you watch it, it still gets under your skin.
It does. All right, well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Halloween franchise.
It's been a blast.
It has. And remember, evil never dies. It just waits for the right moment to strike.
Happy Halloween, everyone.